Yo, welcome to the Fed Up Podcast. I'm riding with Jordan over there. What's up, dude?
Yes, sir.
So today we are going to talk about a very uncomfortable topic that I really hope you will stick with us on because it is an extremely important one. We say that a lot, but this one is something that, oh man, it's really important to me. I know it's important to you. And man, do we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it and seek to understand the problem and try to work on a solution. We're not going to say, hey, you do A, B, and C, you're going to be perfect. That's not what we're going to do. We're just going to talk about how we have both been buried in this thing. And it is something that we feel really passionate about. So, to start with, we're going to talk about sex and the problem that comes from, I guess, this culture that we're in, specifically in the United States and I guess most of the world. But we want to look at how prevalent this thing is, how it started, what it's doing, and how it's just kind of running rampant right now. So hopefully, as we go through it, we'll try to be as efficient as possible. Because like Jordan and I were talking about, we could do a 30-part series on this thing. So basically, when we get done with this episode, is hopefully you would understand the problem, you would um, care about it, and you would want to keep seeking out the resolution, right? So I think to start with, we got to start with kind of a broad question of what is sex? How is sex defined? And I think a great place to start is looking at what we get out of it from a lot of the faith traditions and kind of the box that's created. So let's talk about that, Jordan. What comes to mind when you think about sex and you think of people's framework around that? And I guess specifically, you could talk about people coming out of a Christian environment and I guess more of a Western culture version of that. So what do you
Yeah.
think, dude?
Oh God. Um, well, I think that the main thing that comes to mind when I look back at so many years of um, so many boners and so many confusing thoughts about sexuality and the suffocation of
Mm,
the fear that's injected into um, I mean, I mean, as an adolescent, there was never one conversation about like, my, obviously I didn't have any beneficial conversations with my father, but no paternal person, no mentor ever in my life said, "Hey, Slugger, there's this thing in between your legs,
yeah.
and uh, it's gonna get excited at different times, and if you don't know how to use that thing, you're gonna create a life." And there's just zero conversation. It's the thing that you pretended wasn't there, and
Yeah.
the danger of having literally the most powerful thing you could do as a human, that the most powerful action you could take is, I mean, I think two things you could, the two most powerful things you could do is to take a life from someone, or you can create life with
Mm,
someone. Like that yin yang, like that's the most extreme powerful action a human could take. And to not know what the purpose or the intent or even how to use this weapon in between your legs, if you don't know how to use this thing, you could destroy a lot of life. And just to give some horrifically embarrassing context about my
yes.
first initiation
Yeah.
um, into what sex is, dude, it was literally um, oh, God bless whoever hears this. I'm so sorry. It was literally like third or fourth grade, and had absolutely no idea what sex was. But the weapon between my legs, was, started noticing it.
Yeah.
And I was in a bookstore, and a very prominent bookstore, and because my older brother and little sister were really smart human beings, which means I had nothing in common with them, and didn't know how to read, and they were nerds, and I was the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So where I went in the bookstore was, where's the comics, where's the pictures? I don't want words, I just want to see rad pictures.
Mm,
And um, so I always just beelined it for the comic section. But on my way, there was a little detour, and happened to go through a book section, and there was it was like the Karma Sutra,
Oh
whatever
yeah, yeah, yeah.
sexuality
Uh huh.
section. As a little kid, I was just like, I was walking by and I was just like, "Arr!" like, I was
What's
like,
this?
it's like, what is that?
Yeah.
What are those things on that lady? Those are dope. That's awesome. Open that thing. It was so rad. I opened that thing, and as a little kid, I stole that book.
No way.
Stole it
Yeah.
straight up. And that's my father's was on God's payroll, a pastor,
Wow.
and I stole that book and I took that thing home and I polished my weapon, if you will,
Yeah.
and unloaded some clips. And that's literally my initiation as a little kid.
Mm,
Having a literal, I'm like seeing these chicks and these dudes all pretzeled up in all these
yeah.
sex positions. I'm like, I love pretzels.
Yeah.
And now there's human pretzels. This is dope, And now the pretzel in my pants is like whatever. So,
So let me ask you, did shame come out of that?
dude, this is the best part of the story. So I hid this thing. I hid the pretzel, the pretzel book, um, and I don't know how, but my mom found it,
Mm.
and clearly she's not going to go to my sister, or my brother, because she's like, I know they'll be virgins the rest of their life. Is immediate like Jordan. So I'm
Oh
like,
man.
and I knew exactly what it was.
Yeah.
So like, she found my pretzel recipe book, and
Oh dude.
dude, I totally lied about it. Told it. I said it was like some friend who was, and I hung out with like the worst dudes at school, and because I was like, I was the entertaining clown in class, and all the really bad kids enjoyed me, and I was like, I was just at this kid's house, and just happened to borrow it, and yeah.
Dude.
And then they were gonna call his parents and
Yeah,
be
yeah,
like,
yeah.
because I was a little kid, and they were
Yeah.
like, "This is an issue. This other your son is hanging out with my son, and they're looking at porn and sex books and stuff." And I told them like, if you call them, like, I'm gonna, like, I threatened them like, you cannot call him, blah
Yeah,
blah
yeah.
blah, because obviously I knew it was me. I was lying.
Mm.
Anyways, long-winded story, but like, as a little kid, I was introduced to that thing, having no idea what it was. And then you can imagine like the years following, and then growing up, even getting older, and like, oh, sweet, the internet. Oh, sweet, free pretzel books everywhere, recipes, all like porn, like
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
It's insane, man.
Mm.
That coupled with like having such like insecurity about who I was as an individual, such self hate growing up,
Yeah.
and not knowing how to have a real relationship with a female, and but having this raging hormones as a young guy,
Sure.
and dude, just a clusterfuck
Yeah.
of sexuality, and like trying to figure out, I want to go have this girlfriend, I want to have sex, but I realize it's this really profoundly heavy thing because I'm in this religious environment where they say don't even look at your penis until you're married. And,
Yeah.
and even then, don't
Yeah.
look down while you're having sex.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
And so there's just that anxiety and that fear. And literally,
Mm.
there was never one productive conversation in all of my religious years of spirituality. There was never one discussion about this is what it is.
Sure.
This is what sex should be.
Yeah.
Like literally, I've been winging it my
Yeah.
whole life.
Yeah.
And thankfully, like you and myself, like we have exploratory minds. So
Mm-hmm.
I've spent a lot of time thinking very seriously about it. But in terms of like the origin story of my sexuality, it's pretty fucked.
Yeah.
And it started with
Yeah.
a crime, and it's been robbing me, ironically, of understanding for so many years. So
That's a beautiful callback right there.
yeah, so I think it's and I think that's for Western culture, like that's across the board. Is
Mm.
there's an insanely powerful life creating thing
Mm.
within all of us that it is the most powerful form of communication,
Sure.
nonverbal expression with another human being you can have.
Yep.
And we have no fucking idea how to speak this communication. This language is the
Mm-hmm.
lost language of life that
Yeah.
literally creates life.
Yeah.
And it's just like pretensies. We just it just doesn't matter.
Well, it's true, but like, I think of the church. Not I'm thinking of other people who weren't in a situation like ours, where maybe it wasn't as shame based. Maybe parents did encourage it a little bit more. But in our situation, I know it was like you're talking about. Like, don't think about this stuff. Don't even talk about it, right? Because I can't remember ever having that conversation either, and stumbling upon it in magazines or stuff like that. It started with like just a Sports Illustrated magazine or something like that,
Yeah.
and then being in the generation we were, where all of a sudden, hey man, dial up internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Super
what
dope.
happened with dial-up internet? Oh yeah, like people decided, oh, we're gonna make it 90%
Yeah.
freaking porn websites and whatever.
Dial up a boner.
Yeah, and so parents had no idea that that was going on. Mine didn't, right?
Yeah.
So you can get like Kazaa or some of
Yeah.
those things and those peer-to-peer sharing things and just see whatever you wanted to see.
Literally.
So it was like literally no instruction whatsoever and truckload of whatever you wanted to see. Never before has anyone ever had to deal with something like that since humans have been around, besides our generation, right? So not only are you completely uneducated, it's like you just got this truckload dumped on you
Yeah.
of whatever you wanted to see. And as a kid, you're like, okay, whatever. And then friends would show you stuff. Dude, there was horrible videos that I remember would go around our school,
Oh yeah.
right? And I know you know what I'm talking about, where it's just like as a kid and you're unprepared, especially in a religious environment, all that does is just turn that light of shame on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You feel shame for what you're looking at and the feelings that you have and all this stuff. And it just creates this horrible. And I know that because, dude, I was in it. I was just this dude that was just stuck in shame. And especially when with God, you're like, God, just why am I looking at this stuff? What's going on, right? And then that feeling of shame comes of just like you're not doing good enough, you're not reading the Bible enough or praying, right? I remember talking to several pastors about it. I'm like, hey man, I'm kind of struggling with this stuff. What do you think? And that's kind of the response
Yeah.
because they didn't know. No one had to deal with this stuff yet, right? So when you have that shame in that place you're at, it's this sexual repression that just like cages you in,
Yeah.
right? And it's something that is become so horrible because I think our case is unique to the people in the religious world where
Yeah.
it's more shame based, right? But it doesn't change the fact that there is there is all this shame and sexual repression just around sex in general because I feel like we don't know how to talk about it and we don't know how to make it where it is something natural like you're talking about, where it's something that becomes this, I guess, this lustful thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's kind of like it either kind of goes this way now in this jacked up world we're in of like this shame based thing you don't want anybody to know about you, or this like lust based thing of like I'm gonna get a girlfriend so we could do stuff,
Yeah.
right? It's not about like connecting. It's about like how much can I get this person to do,
Yeah.
right? Or it's about this beautiful person I can have,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's such a horrible way of going forward with such a important need that we have that it's robbing us, right? Because we're prisoners of lust and shame when it comes to sex.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just it's tragic because we're watching the world that is just wreaking the devastation from these areas. Where I just read you that headline of what happened in Germany with this pedophilia ring that got caught.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sign of sexual repression in all these people,
100%.
right? Or you're just watching, you can't watch a freaking football game without like sex selling something, right? Or whatever it is, because it's just lust based. So it's just this tragic world we're in where it's like it's robbing us of connection. It's robbing us of what sex can be. And I feel like um we really just have to see the problem for what it is
Yeah.
and seek to understand it. To instead of reading a news headline, as awful as that was, think to be like, man, how could someone be like that? And not just look at him as a monster, but try to understand like that's a real possibility that maybe could have happened to you. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the truth. We need to really focus on these things if we're going to solve them. Because the thing about it is, it's exploding. The one thing the internet's doing is it's isolating people, and you have access to whatever you want to see. People don't feel the need to have relationships anymore unless they just want to get on Tinder and hook up with somebody, get
Yeah.
their rocks off, and be done.
Yeah.
Use each other for a little bit and move on.
Yeah.
So the point is like, so looking at this problem that we have in this world, it's like, how do we try to understand it?
Yeah. Well, I think the most terrifying part for me to observe is the Tinderizing of our minds and what it's doing, like metaphysically, how it's wiring us neurologically, how it's programming the computers in our head. How do we perceive sexuality externally and within ourselves?
Mm.
And it's literally like by being on a Tinder, you're subconsciously telling yourself like, I am a piece of meat,
Yeah.
and I am putting myself on a menu,
Mm.
and you can swipe through the Taco Bell menu of sexuality, and you can see, do you want a chalupa, do you want a double decker, this, like, you literally are looking at flesh of another human being and saying, I want to I want to eat that thing. I want extra cheese on it. Like, I want all this. It's all this sensory, lust filled.
Yeah.
Like, and all you're doing is looking at females and vice versa, or male to male. I mean, whatever combination, whatever you
Sure.
need to do to get your rocks off. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
what's so terrifying is it's programming us to look at the most powerful expression of a human life as it is just it's reduced our sexuality to a simple, like, put a quarter in, get a gumball out, and we're literally just swiping through, and we're telling ourselves every time we swipe, and we're telling the other person, you're a piece of meat, I'm a piece of meat, let's
Yeah.
just exchange some fluids. And it's so scary because this, like, and we've talked about, is this thing that we have no idea how to communicate is fundamentally, like, this expression creates another life out of it. It's so, whether or not you're a religious person, there's something so miraculous about some cells being exchanged at the pinnacle climax, quote unquote, of this moment,
Mm-hmm.
creates another fucking
I know.
human.
I know.
Like, if you really sit on that, and you do a reverse engineering of, like, okay, this could create a human. Maybe this is more substantial than I am. Look, maybe it's
Yeah.
bigger than me swiping through a menu, looking at other flesh
Mm.
and getting off.
Yeah.
So I think that reverse engineering of, like, what it can do, stepping back, are we doing the right thing? Are we using it well?
Yeah.
Are we even using it the right way? Period.
Yeah.
And I would argue that the way we approach it, and the reason why it makes no sense, and there's sexual repression and pedophilia is even an option for expressing sexuality.
Yeah.
And you look at the Catholic Church and how suffocated they are with their, like, clearly something's wrong
Yeah.
with a
Well, you don't want to talk
priest,
about it. I
with a
know.
priest saying, yeah, it's a good idea to never express myself sexually. That's going to go well.
Yeah.
AKA 20th century bunch of little boys getting touched. So
Yeah.
what's going on? What's
Yeah.
wrong?
Yeah.
So a simple way I look at it is, like, I feel like sexuality has become human beings. They say, I want to sustain my sexual appetite off of candy. And all I do is, like, just indulge in the C's candy shop. And the reality is, like, if you talk to any nutritionist, like, there's no sexual nutritionist that we have access to. We just say, fuck nutrition. I'm just going to go eat a bunch of, like, glow in the dark jelly beans.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're delicious.
Mhm.
Yeah, they look super dope and shiny and
Mhm.
awesome. The packaging's amazing. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
these double D, like, ho-hos and Twinkies that I can, God bless it, cream fill, whatever.
Oh, dude, your analogies are so great.
But
Keep
it's
going.
but it's what's so scary to me and what's so sad is I think it's so infinitely bigger. The appetite, how you sustain that nutrition sexually, I think
Mhm.
we have absolutely no idea. And I think the last thing you and I want to do is to say, here is the menu you need to order off of. Here is the diet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's not Brussels sprouts. Like, it's not like the thing about it is, I think it's so much more ridiculously, massively beautiful than any amount of candy could be. And
Mm.
it's not even like the sensory, the what can be experienced in that. And I think Eastern cultures have explored this a lot more with, like tantric sex. Like there is, like, a spiritual side of sexuality that
Sure.
is, like, massive. And you hear
Yeah.
about, like, dude, I had an orgasm for 73 days in a row. And I didn't even, like, it's like, you hear the most ridiculous shit, but it's like,
Yeah.
there's that extreme too, to where it's like,
Sure.
there's, like, this crazy metaphysical place you can go to sexually
Mm-hmm.
with your body, and this
Mhm.
dimension you can go to.
Yep.
So there's got to be a middle ground,
And there
you
is.
know?
Yeah. And I feel like, we'll definitely talk about that spiritual side of it, but I want to hint on what you just talked about with the menu and the Tinder because, dude, it is based on, like, this lust, and we just need to talk about it and really hone in on what that is, right? So it's this feeling that like in our culture, the default tendency is, I feel like in dudes, is lust. I mean, we're on construction sites. What are those dudes based? Are they based on really connecting with other women, or are they about, look at this chick I just nailed, right? Or whatever
Literally,
it is. And
literally
that's the horrible
yesterday.
part. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, where it's just like you see these dudes, and in their brains they're just lustful human beings. They want to use the women in their lives. They want to use their wives or their girlfriends or whatever, right? Look at porn, show porn, all these
Hmm.
things, right? Because that's what it is. It's based in lust. It's based in I need,
Consumer based.
yeah, I need this thing to satiate my need, and I'm using it in this tweaked way to do it, right? And when you're based in lust like that, you cannot have connection.
Hmm.
You are robbed from it, because even if you get married and stuff like that, you're basing your relationship with your partner as someone who is going to fulfill my need. It is the weakest form of love that we have. It's the same thing a baby does. You can talk about it as baby love. It's the idea of like, you do this for me, I'll love you, or whatever.
Yep.
And it's just sad because you see all these broke ass dudes that have no idea how to have a real connection with a partner in life.
Hmm.
And it's it's something that is just so not understood. Like if these dudes can understand what they were really doing to their soul and their it would be so much different, but they can't because they're trapped. And I wrote a little thing about this on our Instagram, but like what porn does, regardless if you can judge it however you want, but this is how I look at it, is it keeps you locked on this physical plane. You're looking at someone as this beautiful person that I want on this physical level.
Hmm.
And it keeps you locked there.
Yeah.
And that's what lust does. It's just about this basic surface level. And it's like, I want you to meet me here. There's no depth, there's no real connection or anything like that. It's a matter of using each other. It's the menu example that you said. It's so perfect, right? It's what you think about being on Tinder. When you're on Tinder, you're looking at people like, ooh, that person's pretty. I think I might connect with them. Swipe right, right?
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're seeking somebody to use in some way. And that's
Hmm.
what lust does. It's about using. It's not about sharing and giving and loving. It's sex, and it's based on this idea of like, I'm I'm going to use you, and maybe something will come out of me using you, right? Maybe there will be a relationship that comes out of me using you. And what a horrible place to start. You don't want to start in a relationship with like me coming over and thinking of the ways I can use you, and I'm like, oh, you're pretty cool, so maybe we'll we'll have a real relationship,
Yeah.
So I just think it's just something to call awareness to, that like lust is something we don't want, because in the end it's going to leave us broken and empty, and we're not going to have that real connection like we talked about before with love and seeking, like how our souls are wired. We're built to have that connection. Part of a healthy sexual relationship is to build on that. You
Hmm.
want to have that real connection. And if it's lust, it's never going to be that. You're just stuck in the car salesman idea of like, I'm using you. I'm
Yeah.
using you to fulfill my needs because my needs are important. And then you're thinking of like, oh, what can I get this person to do? Or what do other people think? And it's just such a horrible way of just jacking up something that could be so great,
Yeah.
and this loving connection that comes from sex.
Yeah.
It makes it so hard to talk about because you feel like such an outlier if you even mention that. It's
Yeah.
like you're at the construction site and some dude's showing you a picture and you're like, dude, what's wrong with you, man?
You need to respect women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you're looked like you're just a pussy,
Yeah.
right? And that's what it's
Yeah.
just, it's so sad.
Yeah. Well, what's just hearing you talk about it is what terrifies me about our lack of ability to even articulate our feelings associated with sexuality, and how fucking empty our souls are, if we're honest about it, is
Yeah.
the internet is actually, I think, what's so beautiful and so equally sad about the internet. It is the secret, like, treehouse of all of our minds, where all of the thoughts that we don't want anyone else to think manifest. It's like, you look at the internet, the reason why 90+%, including the dark web, is porn.
Mm-hmm.
There's something we got to step back and say, this thing, this artificial intelligence, this computer system that's connecting all of humanity, upwards of 90% of the energy invested in this thing that is running the world,
Mm-hmm.
is sexually focused.
Yeah.
And the fact that it is all in a place of darkness and it's hidden and it's shame filled, and we have created socially acceptable apps that treat for us, we're both heterosexual men. It's like if I wanted to, I could pull up and at the same time pull up an app and say, I want a pizza. I want it from this place. I want these toppings.
Mm-hmm.
Click. They're going to bring it to my house and I'm going to eat that thing and gain a couple pounds. In the same way, after I know what I'm going to eat for dinner, I'm like, what do I want for dessert?
Yep.
Here is Brianna. She is 5 miles away from me.
Mm-hmm.
She wants a wiener. Sweet, I have one. That'll be a nice dessert. Come over for dessert, Brianna. And we've so reduced and so lost self-worth
Yeah.
as
We would.
males and females. We think that in order to exchange any substance, we think that it's better to be with someone who doesn't even give a fuck about me and is using me and I'm using them. It's better to have that thing than to have nothing and be lonely.
Mm.
And there's just so much just fuck it.
Yeah.
So much just like it is what it is. I'm
Yeah.
just not even gonna think about it. I don't care. And that's
Yeah.
when I think about all these guys and I hear all these guys just going on all these Tinder things and just literally get in, get off, get out approaches to sexuality. I'm just like, it's so sad to me, man.
Yeah.
And it's to come back to that like percentage of that dark treehouse that the internet is, and it's a manifestation of all of our true feelings that we've no idea what to do with, and they're just up in the treehouse. And I say treehouse intentionally because it's childlike, and it's because I think as adults we've created an internet that is the bulk of sexual misunderstanding,
Mm.
but it's because as children our minds were never developed to understand
Yeah.
what this powerful thing that will sustain humanity.
Yeah.
This is the thing that bridges the gap for humans to keep being human, is creating more humans.
Yeah.
And if we're going to do this whole humanity thing well, we should probably figure out how to fucking do it, literally, metaphorically. You know?
I know exactly what you mean, but and that's where it gets tied up in that shame aspect, dude. Where it's just like, yeah, we have this natural feeling, right? Regardless if you like men, women, or whatever,
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
you have this natural inkling, right? That like magnetism that you love
Yep.
so much.
Dude, magnets.
That's right. Where you have this magnetism, like, and then you feel something going on. You're like, what is this? And then you try to go to the people, the elders in your life. You're like, hey, I have this feeling, or you don't because you already know, like, I'm not. It's not a safe place for me to talk about this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? And if you don't, then that's when that shame bubble comes in because you're like, I don't know what to do with these, right? And I feel like this is bad. Everyone's telling me that's bad, and then you own that, like, oh man, something's wrong with me,
Yeah.
right? When in reality, it's like this natural thing, this magnetic pull that everybody has. I mean, that's why there's humans on this planet still,
Yeah.
right? The pull is strong. It's very
incredibly
strong.
strong.
But the problem is it gets dysfunctional fast because we don't know what to do with that pull that's in there,
Yeah.
right? Where if we feel like, we've looked at something we shouldn't have, or we've done something to ourselves that we shouldn't have. We live in the world of shouldn't when it comes to sex, and that's where the shame creeps in. The shame comes in, and you tell yourself, "Man, there's something wrong with me. I'm not like everyone else."
Yeah.
Even if you're heterosexual coming from a heterosexual family, and you're looking at stuff that you feel like, oh, my parents wouldn't approve of this, then you have that shame creep in. Or if you're geared towards looking at someone of the other gender, then the shame really comes in if you're in a family that you feel like won't accept you, right? Because how are you supposed to have real connection and intimacy with people in your life when you feel like there's this thing inside you that people are going to reject and say, get away from me?
Yeah.
And it's a horrible thing, man. And I know from personal experience, like growing up and being in that world where you can see all this horrible stuff and having this desire to look at it, but having the shame that you don't can't talk to anybody about it. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. And that's where my world got rocked, where I was stuck in that world looking at this stuff because it was a shame cycle that
Yeah.
took place. And that repression and that shame, you just don't know what to deal with. You don't feel like you could talk to anyone. The people I did talk to were the worst people I could have talked to about it.
Of
Where
course.
they were like, hey man, like, this is what you need to do to get out of it. Like right now, you're just not doing enough. And it's like, well, shit. I'm not doing enough, so I got to try harder. That's how I get out of this shame cycle. No, that's not how you get out of it. So it took a long process of me trying to figure out how to do that and going to so many different groups and talking to so many different people to basically coming into this support group where you sit there with all these broke ass dudes in a circle, and basically it's intimacy 101. I'm going to say my name and I'm going to tell you about myself, and after I get done they're going to be like, "Thanks, man. No judgment, just thank you. Thank you for sharing." And that type of environment actually created a place where that shame cycle could die because you learn what it takes to accept yourself in
Mm-hmm.
this feeling that you have.
Yeah.
And it's just something so foreign. It's so foreign where I honestly wonder how many people have that, where they could feel like they can share what's going on inside themselves sexually, because sex is so tied to shame because it goes back to those religious roots.
Yeah.
We have a a a law system of like, this is what it looks like. Anything apart from this is wrong.
Literally.
And when that wrong, that's where that shame comes.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have it like that, dude, it's so hard to find that peace, that
Yeah.
acceptance of yourself when you reject yourself
Yeah.
at this core level because of something that is so deep as a sexual drive. And for me, it just took so long to finally understand how to have that end. And it came when I could sit in a group and have these dudes listen to me and accept me. And then out of this crazy surrendering of it, you learn what it takes to accept yourself and to accept yourself as you are. And then you work from that. And it's something that I don't think a lot of people understand. And it only gets to where you get to this horrible place where you are forced to like go to a group like that or have some other counselor or something show you that you ever
Mm-hmm.
break free from it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's such a shame because I feel like in our world that we're in today, dudes are buried in it.
Mm-hmm.
The shame's there, the lust is there,
Yeah.
and it's like, how do you get out of it? Do you get out of it? Is it normal? Because you go to the construction site, dudes are going to tell you it's normal. Like, oh, this dude does the same stuff I do.
Yeah.
I'm not weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not broken. Like
Yeah.
that feeling I have that I'm broken. Tim's the same way,
Yeah.
right? But Tim's empty and broken too. Now you're two
Classic
empty,
Tim.
broken people that
Yeah.
compare each other. And now you're like, oh, he's going to walk around with a limp. I'm going to walk around with a limp. Life's good. We're just going to be limping along.
Yeah.
And it's just, no,
No.
because that's what keeps it so jacked up.
Yeah.
That's why all these horrible things are happening, dude. You brought up the church. It's a great example. If people like in the Catholic Church can look and be like, listen, we're not going to stand for what's going on right now.
Yeah.
We're going to protest and say, you know what? These priests abusing these kids is not okay. We
Mm-hmm.
need to talk about it. We're not just going to go to church every day
Mm-hmm.
and enable the situation. Dude, that makes me so incredibly sad when I think about it, because I think of like, it's like, yeah, we're not talking about it and you're not actually necessarily contributing to the problem, but you're enabling it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, we have to understand these things in order that we can stop this brokenness from going on. Because you could think of like these kids in that system and just the horrific stuff that comes out of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's why we need to talk about it. And
Yeah.
we can't be afraid to talk about it.
Well, I think what's to add on to that, I think a lot of the core issues with sexuality is we're so brutally superficial with we look at everything with our eyes, which is everyone's like, yeah, because that's how you look at things. But it's we we look at meaning superficially. We observe sexuality as I am aroused because of what I am seeing,
Mm.
and there's the reality of our culture being so physically superficially lust filled is we have an infinite amount of I just read this the other day. There was this African American female, I forget how many decades ago, she was it's so ironic, she was a part of a freak show because of her physical body. She had this ridiculous, not to name names, but like injected filled Kardashian ass, and but it was natural, and she was made out to be like the woman with the beard, like she was a freak because of
Yeah.
how big
Yeah.
her derriere was. But the irony being, like, here we are putting water balloons in our chest as females. I mean, not me, obviously, but and not yet to be, watch next time. And females literally having vacuums injected into them, taking some fat away from this section of my body, re-injecting it into their us, and just having these ridiculous aesthetic features, because it's this is the gatekeep for me to magnetize suitable sexual partners.
Mm-hmm.
And this, the saddest part of that whole thing is females are saying, I want to draw, I want to magnetize the most superficial form of a male's energy. I want to sell a billboard to them for them to come take from me. Like, that's all it is. It's an advertising based sexual interaction. And guys, there's so much pressure, and I've been guilty of this for a lot of my life, is getting to the gym, being this monster of a human being. It's like we look at sexual exchange from a purely superficial, I am aroused because of what I see. And what's so interesting is we desperately, at the core of what are we really fucking wanting in a sexual exchange? What are we really wanting? Like, the nakedness, I think metaphorically is just a situation for us to say, I'm naked, you're naked. Ideally, we're both pretty excited about that, exchange. But underneath it all, I think there is a desperation to be seen metaphorically naked and say, your fucking soul is sexy. And who you are as a human being gets me fucking hard. And I am aroused by who you are. And let's exchange fluids, and let's do some weird shit. And but at the core of it, our real desire is to not be superficially looked at like, oh, this is a sweet billboard. Oh, look at that billboard. Dude, I can get 2 chalupas for $3.99. Oh yeah, let's go get some chalupas, swipe Tinder. It's like, no, you could hypothetically get to know a partner through dating them, through building a relationship. You could actually wait to see them naked for a while, a couple months, and build a relationship. And then you could evolve and start exploring, like, hey, because of who you are, I want to explore this side of this with you. It's having that dessert before, like, sequencing the meal of your exchange. So I think what's so interesting is everything you're saying is like, it's such a clusterfuck of not understanding what sexuality is because it's our eyes rob us of so much meaning in life, because we just superficially are seeing, what do I want? What do I lust after? What do I desire? Go take it. And the last thing I will say about this is Alan Watts, a super gangster, he talks about sexuality, and he says the most beautiful thing, and he was a heterosexual dude, and he's like, the most beautiful thing of sexuality is to give a female an orgasm. And he talks about that, and that separates and erases everything we talk about sexuality in terms of, are you here to take, or are you here to give? And he's like one of the most gangster philosophers of modern day, and he's like, there's the most beautiful part of expressing sexuality is to give this thing, to give this heightened sense of experience and sexuality, this climaxing thing, to give that thing is the most beautiful thing. And it's so interesting about, just from a non-spiritual place, just saying there's a beautiful aspect of expressing sexuality by giving.
No, I know what you mean, dude. You, I want to hit on one thing that you reminded me of. It's the eyes and the physical plane, and I guess to me, when you are looking at, what gets your rocks off and stuff like that, it's um, it's telling of your spiritual depth, because
Totally.
if you can look at a lot of the porn videos or stuff like that, and you look at it and you can see beyond the physical plane, you see this broken person that has a camera just like we do and is doing all this stuff in front of a camera, and you think of what that would take to do that. The place that you'd have to be doing that for money and stuff like that. And if you could see that, I don't think you'd find it attractive. But we don't. Because we look at the physical plane. All we see is like what you're talking about. And to me, that's reflective enough to show you that, like, man, I don't want to be that kind of person that does that, that's stuck on that plane where it's just like, it's about the monkey brain being pleasured. I want to be the person of depth that can be like, man, it sucks that this person in front of me right now is broken enough that they have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a hard time seeing how that's a healthy outlet. I do. It's just like, like I said, I don't want to judge every situation, but I have a hard time seeing where, like, if there's a camera and you're doing this to a camera for other people, I have a hard time seeing that the person, but on the other side of the camera is a person of integrity and a person that's whole and is living life to the capacity that where they're not broken inside.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like where you're watching is brokenness make brokenness,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just sad to
And
see.
feeding off of it.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
once if you could see it for what it is for most of the time, I have a hard time seeing how that's attractive, but we don't because we're on that place like you're talking about.
Superficial. Yeah.
Yeah, and to me, it's just like it's really reflective. Like just deal with that. Just deal with that. Like if you can see someone like that and you're captivated enough where it gets you aroused or whatever, then it's just telling of where you're at.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a matter of like, is that who you want to be?
Yeah. Well, I think not to disagree with you, but there's a side of that, and I this is gonna be very telling of I don't know if it's my lack of character, whatever it is, but I've obviously thought a lot about sexuality, a lot, my whole life, and because it was such an important thing to me as I grew up, and there was an aspect I did respect about being in the culture that I was. I'm like, it made me think about it so seriously because it was such a seriously serious thing growing up with sexuality. Like, clearly, there's something powerful here if we're not allowed to even talk about it. You know what I mean? And my thoughts about like women stripping or men stripping and or people being like their living being made off of like doing whatever with whoever
Mm-hmm.
and filming it, there's a part of me that's so compassionate to that. Like it makes sense to me. It makes total sense to me. Like when I was a late teen and like I did the modeling thing and I had no direction in life, there was a part of me that was like, I should probably just go strip, or I should go be a male escort and just you know
Yeah.
explore my
Sure.
sexuality with some loaded women.
Yeah.
And there was some serious thought put into that because I didn't have a compass and I didn't have an anchor in any form of what truth is.
Mm-hmm.
And I see strippers and I see porn industry employees as dabbling in the most powerful job pursuit ever, because you are expressing the most powerful energy expression of life, and you're using it like as a stripper. Like, it makes total sense to me. Like, you don't, whether it's a daddy issue, whatever the void is,
Yeah.
but you're reclaiming that and being able to just have men be just putty in front of you
Yeah.
and throw wads of money at you
Yeah.
because you're like, you are on a physical aesthetic plane, you are so gorgeous and sexy.
Mm.
And as a female, I'm like, that's gotta feel so good
Yeah.
in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you go away and in the quiet, and I think that's what you're saying, is like, there's gotta be some sadness involved with that, realizing you're literally selling yourself. You're literally getting filmed
Mm-hmm.
to show this. It's a lie.
Yeah.
You're lying. That's
Yeah.
what an actor is. You're pretending to be something.
Yeah.
And when you go home, whether you are married and in the porn industry, whatever aspect, but if you're a stripper or you're in, if sex is your business,
Mm-hmm.
there's gotta be. I just refuse to believe that there's true fulfillment there.
Mm.
There's gotta be such a deep fucking sadness that you are selling your sexuality as a way to sustain your life.
Yeah.
And there's no beauty that's kept for expressing with your partner.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most misunderstood aspects of that culture and porn and everything robs from our sexualities. They say it's this thing that is just on display for the world. And there's such a beautiful aspect I think we don't understand, that what is it like to explore in a monogamous, like, one-on-one, like, journey with one human being, like exploring your sexuality and being fully known.
Mm.
To where our culture is like, it's as get as many followers as you can to look at your gazongas,
It's right.
and that's where your value's based. It's like, what if you actually had some self-respect and didn't sell your gazangas every moment of every day,
Mm.
and you actually saw your physical body as a part of sexual arousal for a partner, as a gift you can offer to an
Yeah.
individual. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. But I like that idea so much more of, instead of like fueling lust, like a way to take this sexual drive and fuel love. I know it sounds really,
No,
but that's, I think that's the difference, right? Where it's not a matter of like, I just think it needs to be something so wrapped in love that that's where the purity comes from, right? Because it goes to this dark, nasty place when it goes to that lust area, right?
because there's no compass.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you could take it and have it be in love, it's just different. And that's where I think it becomes pure and natural and
Mm-hmm.
healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I can read this story just because it kind of
Please,
hints on. So this is a little bit longer of a story, but
I'm ready.
I'll just
I'm
read
into
it.
it.
You can try to. So this comes from this book, Conversations with God,
Yes,
right? And I just thought it was a really beautiful way of hinting on exactly what you just said. What is it like when you're in this relationship and you guys can come together and share this energy? And it's not, I guess it's not a matter of like trying to show that like when you come together in the right way, you just become one,
yeah,
right? Because there's a balance of being one and there's being two, right? So it's like the yin yang of like, yeah. So anyway, I'll read it as best I can.
please,
So bear with me here.
please.
So if you want to find it, it's in Conversations with God. It's by Neil Walsh.
Mm-hmm.
Really interesting book. But anyway, all right, here we go. All right. So to make a more vivid description, let's imagine two people in a room. They're on the far sides of the room from each other. We'll call them Tom and Mary. Now, Tom's personal energy is transmitting signals about Tom in a 360-degree circle out in the universe. Some of that energy wave hits Mary. Mary, meanwhile, is emitting her own energy, some of which hits Tom. But these energies meet each other in a way you might not have thought of. They meet midway between Tom and Mary. Here the energies unite. Remember now, these energies are a physical phenomena. They can be measured and felt. And they combine to form a new energy unit that we will call to Mary. It is the energy of Tom and Mary combined. Tom and Mary could very well call this energy the body between us, for it is just that, a body of energy to which both are connected, which both are feeding the continuing energies which flow to it, and which is sending energies back to its two sponsors along the thread or cord or pipeline that always exists within the matrix. Indeed, this pipeline is the matrix. It is this experience of Tamari which is the truth of Tom and Mary. It is to this holy communion that both are drawn, for they feel along the pipeline the sublime joy of the body between, of the joined one, of the blessed union. Tom and Mary, standing off at a distance, can feel in a physical way what is going on in the matrix. Both are urgently drawn toward this experience. They move toward each other at once. Now their training sets in. The world has trained them to slow down, to mistrust the feeling, to guard against the hurt, to hold back. But the soul wants to know to marry now. If the two are lucky, they will be free enough to set aside their fears and trust that love is all there is. They are irrevocably drawn now, these two, the body between them, to the body between them. To marry is already being experienced metaphysically, and Tom and Mary will want to experience it physically. So they move closer together. Now to get to each other, it looks it looks that way to the casual observer. But they are trying, but they are each trying to get to Tamari. They are trying to reach that place of divine union which already exists between them, the place where they already know they are one and what it is like to be one. So they move towards this feeling they are experiencing, and as they close the gap between them, as they shorten the cord, the energy they are both sending to Tamari travels a shorter distance and is thus more intense. They move closer still. The shorter the distance, the greater the intensity. They move closer still. Once more, the intensity increases. Now they just stand a few feet apart. The body between them is glowing hot, vibrating with terrific speed. The connection to and from Tamari is thicker, wider, brighter, burning with the transfer of incredible energy. The two are said to be burning with desire. They are. They move closer still. Now they touch. The sensation is almost unbearable, exquisite. They feel at the point of their touch all the energy of Tamari, all the compacted, intensely unified substance of their combined being. If you open yourself to your greatest sensitivity, you'll be able to feel this subtle, sublime energy as a tingling when you touch. Sometimes the tingling will run right through you, or or as heat at the point of touch. Heat which you may also suddenly feel through your body, but concentrated deeply within your lower chakra or energy center. It will burn there, especially intensely. And Tom and Mary will now be said to have the hots for each other. Now the two embrace, and they close the gap even further, with Tom, Mary, and Tamari filling all the necessary space. Tom and Mary can feel Tamari between them, and they want to get even closer, to literally meld with Tamari, to become Tamari in physically form. I have created a male and female bodies a way to do that. And this moment, Tom and Mary's bodies are ready to do that. Tom's body is now ready to literally enter Mary. Mary's body is ready to literally receive Tom. The tingling, the burning is now beyond intense. It's indescribable. The two physical bodies join. Tom, Mary, and Tamari become one in the flesh. Still, the energies flow between them urgently, passionately. They heave, they move. They can't get enough of each other. Can't get close enough to each other. They strive to get close, close, closer. They explode, literally, and their entire physical bodies convulse. The vibration sends ripples to their fingertips. In the explosion of their oneness, they have known the God and the Goddess, the Alpha and the Omega, the All and the Nothing, the essence of life, the experience of that which is. There are physical chemistries as well. The two have become one, and that third entity often is created of the two in a physical form. Thus, an outpicturing of Tamari is created, flesh of their flesh, blood of their blood. They have literally created life. Long story.
No, it's not. It's so heavy, dude. It seems so alien compared to what, like, that is the opposite of what I have observed sexuality to be. But more importantly, what did you take from that?
Mm. Well, the reason I really connected with that is it's something so foreign, like we were talking about before, that I feel like in our culture, like we have no idea what that looks like. It's so hypersexualized in a way where it's on the physical plane, on the lust and the sexual repressed side, that we have no idea what that's like, right? So this idea of like two people getting together and that magnetism feeling, that feeling of like that connection, right? It's what love is, right? Love is just this connection, right? And you have this energy towards somebody, and what that looks like when it's brought in a healthy way, where you can be with someone and it's just like you just want to give yourself to them, right?
Yeah,
And it's creating that energy, like he calls it tamari, right? But
yeah.
that's what it is. You two are both just like flicking on to this idea of like, I want to give myself to you, and what that's like. And it just turns into this beautiful thing. And it's kind of like this triune form that he talks about in the book, which, hints upon some of the things I learned about in seminary, where it does create this interesting idea of like you, the other person, and then the entity of the two
This
of you. Yeah,
spiritual
yeah,
extreme.
which is really, it's really powerful and beautiful. So to me, it shows the power of what we're dealing with here, and the power of like what can happen when we say, hey man, we want to have like real sexual intimacy with someone else, and what that can look like and how that can feel, and how it can just, it's almost like he talks about, it's like you're connecting to God in some way when it's like that, right? It's just this pure thing that can be this life-changing aha moment, but it doesn't, for so many reasons that we've talked about earlier. So I think something like this, it's the reason I wanted to read that story. It comes from a book called Conversations with God, where this dude literally, like, for a year was like having a conversation with God and writing everything down that he heard God say. This is what God described when two people get together in the book, which is interesting. Who knows if he was really talking to God or not, but it's still, it hits on a point that's really fascinating, where to me, it just shows the power of what we're dealing with here. And like
Mm.
what you said, it's something that is just fundamentally so powerful that we don't know what we're wielding And when you think of something like, if that's a possibility, I mean, dude, that's powerful stuff we're dealing with.
yeah,
And if it's all covered in darkness and nastiness, like we talked about, you look at the power of what that's doing and it
yeah,
makes sense. So to flip it now and look at it like as a healthy version of it, this to me looks like a healthy version of it where you can think of like just the energy you're giving and like what's going on is something that's so big and powerful that I don't know if we really understand. And it seems really foreign to what we're used to. Our default mode is so jacked
mm,
that we have no idea. It's like that antenna is so broke that
yeah,
like trying to fix it and get it honed in is something that is just like we don't even know what that looks like for
yeah,
most people.
yeah. What I appreciated about that story is it's giving a really like very artistic kind of eloquent display of what sexuality could be with like the natural laws of nature and how the energy being exchanged in the 360 of like what's coming out of her and him, and like there's this like symphony of like hippiness of beauty, you know. But I think there's a real a trueness there that, I mean, hearing it, it's like holy shit, that is nothing what I think sexuality is
Yeah.
in our culture. And the way I always say ridiculous analogies, and because I think about things in pictures, and what the thing the thing that always helps me conceptualize what people are in my life, and we're talking about sex and sexually what people are wanting to present to me in life and what they are and how I observe them. Like I always I always think about myself, and this is about the hippie shit. When I want to make sense of a thing or a topic or an idea, and give it human context, I look at my life, and the only way I have found peace in life is I stopped trying to be and this is a weird analogy. Like I look at everyone is their own ship, and we're in this ocean of all of these laws of nature that we have no idea how to use and manipulate. And instead of learning how to, as a ship, as a vessel in this ocean of life, everyone has convinced themselves and is telling each other, we got to be fucking speedboats, raging, blasting megaphones, and we want to invite as many people onto this yacht and just have this crazy sex orgy party of life and just noise and sensory overload and fake tans and boob jobs. And like that's the type of culture we're wanting to have in our life vessel sailing experience. And the only peace I have found in my life is realizing that when I'm in the ocean and I'm sailing in life, there's fucking chaos. There's storms and different seasons, and there's beauty and there's breezes at different times. And I have found so much peace in just putting up my sail and not trying to be, in terms of sexually speaking, not trying to be this raging speedboat of noise and neon colors and and realize that females, because I'm heterosexual, like when I see females and they're trying to be this speedboat of aesthetic beauty of just like, look at me and this noise and this rage, and I'm just this like little sailboat, and I'm like, you 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 don't you don't give a fuck about me. All you care about is taking from me, because
Mhm.
you're just wanting to take my attention and take my energy from me. Therefore, like, I'm not going to let you aboard. I don't want to sail next to you. I don't want to be in the same area, like nautically near you. And that's the thing I think a lot of people don't realize is, like, sexually speaking, when we're just in this ocean of chaos trying to find a compass, where do we put our anchor? Do we want to let this male or female aboard our ship and experience sexuality? Is realizing, like, if you're magnetized towards a male or female, and there is just an insane amount of time and energy and financial investment put into their aesthetic
Yeah.
beauty,
Yeah.
they don't give a fuck about you. They're wanting to take your attention, and they want your energy taken from you. They don't want to give you anything.
Yeah.
And the type of people, this is going to make sense, I hope. The type of people you want to explore your sexuality with are people who are sailing as well, and you want to invite them aboard. You want to get to know who they are, and that you don't want to be sold this crazy raging speedboat like, oh, this is who I am. It's like sexuality is explored through this. and there's no we're not trying to sell a specific avenue, but there is this energy that you're reading about with these two individuals. It's this place of openness and this flow of nature that isn't even explored.
Hmm.
Like we don't even know how to explore our natural desires with another individual. It's just like I want the fried version of that meal. Just like get in, get off, get out.
Yeah,
And that's what I'm just feeling when you're talking about reading that. It's like we have no idea how to get back to the origin of what the nature of sexuality is.
yeah. Hmm.
Is because it's so superficially driven,
Yeah.
and what those two individuals experience, that spiritual element of like coming together.
Yeah.
It's like that's what I see is like the sailboat, like finding a female, like docking together at the same place,
Mm-hmm.
going and just sitting on this like warm sand and just like exploring each other's nature.
Yeah.
And like whatever happens on the island happens on the island.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
But from a very organic place, and that's what was so beautiful about that.
Mm. Well, dude, yeah, your analogies are awesome and they make sense.
Well,
So
that's
I think
to
that
be
was,
debated.
yeah. So I think that was a good one. But no, I think it boils down to like, well, like what, I mean, sex in a really simplistic way is just like a celebration of love in like this physical form.
Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about when you think of all these people on the speed ships and stuff like that is just people that are, I guess they don't even know what real love is,
Yeah.
and it's about that taking.
Yeah.
Take. My life's about taking because I'm trying to fill something,
Yeah.
fill. And then you realize when you, discover what real love is and stuff like that, it's the opposite, right? It's just about
Yeah.
giving, it's about connecting. And then what I feel like what a healthier form of sex is that in a physical way of like, listen, man, I I'm connected. I want to give myself to you in this way of this energy coming in, and whatever magnet you're drawn to. I don't really care. I don't think it's that much of a big deal. We want to make it a big deal,
Yeah.
but it's something where it's like I'm more focused on how do you love, and like how can this really powerful physical manifestation take place in a way that's actually helping you. It's helping other people and not just ripping apart from them.
Yeah.
Because it's like I feel like if you could see what you're doing to your soul in this lustful place, it's like you're taking from somebody,
Yeah.
and you're just leaving them a little more broken when you're done.
Yeah. Well, the last part of that analogy that I wanted to say is the raging speedboats that everyone has, and they're just the difference between being a sailboat and just in accepting the laws of nature to take you wherever you're flowing in that season of life. The speedboat has a fucking agenda. It's gasoline fueled. It is just raging. It goes wherever it wants, and everyone who is on a speedboat is a fucking pirate because they want to just go and get what they want, and they're just aesthetically, superficially driven. I'm gonna come on deck. I'm gonna fucking get in, get off, get out. I'm gonna go on my merry way. I don't give a fuck about you. I'm gonna go find the next thing. I'm gonna be a pirate.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take your booty, literally and metaphorically. That's the right word, right? Booty.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. But that's the beauty of sexuality and being in a sailboat is what if you actually were just focused on loving yourself and knowing who you were and sailing through life. And guess what? If you know who you are and you love yourself, there's going to be a natural organic flow of someone sailing into in your nautical area. And if you're not a pirate and you see someone else sailing that loves themselves as well, hey, you might just sail next to each other, or like organically meeting someone who is also self-loving and is not a fucking pirate. And what could come out of that beautiful connection.
Yeah.
And I think that's the separation of culturally, we're fucking pirates and want to go take the booty, wink, wink, but opposed to like maybe sexuality comes from a place of first knowing myself and seeing where my nature flows.
Yeah.
And looking at who's coming into my life organically instead of whose life am I going to go fucking put myself with all the dating manipulation things I learned on YouTube.
Yep.
Oh, here's how I'm going to go to the bar and use all these tools to manipulate and juggle and play hard to get and be like, oh, I'm the asshole. And she's going to be like, well, my dad was an asshole, but I secretly want him to love me. Can you love me? It's like, no, what happens if you first know how to fucking love yourself?
Mm-hmm.
What could happen sexually if you met someone who knows how to love themselves?
That's right.
And what comes out of that?
It's true, and it goes back to what we talk about with love, man. Because I keep thinking of that damn video you sent me, right? Where that I can't
She's
remember her
such a
name.
good. Oh
Well,
yeah,
I know, but I keep
we gotta post that,
I know it
whatever
keeps
that
coming
means.
back. But
Yeah,
like it's basically this video of this lady just talking about like getting together with someone else and like sharing your life together, and she just like scoffs at the idea of like her having to give love.
compromising
Yeah,
in relationship.
yeah, and so it's basically like she looks at it as like no, like this person's coming to be with me because they get to share my love of myself with me, right? Where that seems like so ass backwards that's it's hard to understand. But like, what happens if sex came from something like that? That you were so
Yeah,
honed in and you just loved who you were and accepted yourself, where you're like, yeah, I'm gonna find this person that digs me
yeah,
too, and we're gonna share it
yeah.
together.
She's so fucking content to sail whatever direction she's sailing. She's like, I don't need to pirate anyone else's life
Yeah.
energy. If you want to come aboard, shit's dope here because I love myself.
Yeah.
And I'd love for you to experience me loving myself. And I'd
Yeah.
love to experience loving you because you don't need anything from me either.
Mm-hmm.
P.S. I think you're incredibly fucking sexy. Let's see what happens below deck.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, yeah, no, I got you. But I just think that that's something that is I don't even know how you even start with some of the brokenness of people. Where I think that the goal here in this talk is to understand that yeah, our natural default place is something where it's really broken and messed up. And if we don't fix it, we're just going to stay that way. It's going to manifest in other people. We're going to take, we're going to rip, and we're going to create that. That brokenness is going to amplify,
Yeah.
right? And what we're talking about now is kind of how you get to this place where if you're in touch with yourself, you love yourself, how it creates the opposite effect. You can heal. You can send that energy wave that is something that will change and manifest and help people instead of just ripping people apart. The problem, like we started with, you're just seeing so many stories of people just being ripped apart because I mean, who knows what the percentages is of people who actually have healthy sexual relationships or really know how to love and do.
It's
I
in the
mean,
negatives.
dude, it's
Yeah.
got to be horrible. And it's just that's what you're seeing manifest. So I feel like if you can listen to what we're saying and it's resonating with you, then it's a matter of like, so how do you get to that place one of like how do you love yourself and fix this thing of like this natural place of either just lusting and like craving trying to grab stuff or just this cycle of shame that like I'm not supposed to be this way. I don't accept myself. And because when it comes to sex stuff is deep. It is so deep because when you have this dysfunction in your sexual life, then it just, dude, it permeates your soul to this depth that just it could be devastating.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, where it's like the goal at the end of this talk for me is like to show why we should care so much about wanting to change that and seeing if that's how we are.
Yeah.
And coming full circle for me, it
Yeah.
was realizing I was like that. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? So I think to wrap this thing up is more of how do you encourage that from people? Like where does it start with people that are stuck in default mode, Tinder
Yeah.
swipers, the dudes that are just so ashamed of themselves that they feel like no one would accept them. Where does
Yeah.
it start?
Yeah. I think that's the most important thing to end on is understanding where you're at sexually is where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about winning sexuality. It's about exploring, am I in a place of exchanging my sexual energy and expressing my sexual energy in the highest form it was intended to be expressed? And just looking at that and being really fucking honest. And I think if you're really honest about where you're at sexually, if porn is involved, if Tinder is involved, if all these other superficial ways of expressing and exchanging sexual energy,
Mm-hmm.
I think you are fucking terrified of who you are and actually potentially being fully loved for who you are, because porn, engaging in porn says, I'm really fucking afraid of actually having the courage to go pursue and explore sexually these desires with another human being. And I'm gonna and to live a life selflessly, to actually sustain a relationship with another human
Mm-hmm.
that would actually crave me in the way that I'm looking in this fantasy world.
Yeah.
Like the idea of this female just looking at me like I'm this Roman god and worshiping me and like sexually blah blah blah. It's like you're having all these like crazy ridiculous fantasies. It's like, Well, what if you actually loved a woman
Mm.
sustainably for such a long time and sacrificially to where she's like, she you came home and the kids weren't there and she's like, I fucking love the man that you are. I'm so fucking turned on by the man that you are and where your heart is at with
Yeah.
what you do and how you live and your compass. I need you to take my clothes off and study my anatomy
Yeah.
from such an organic place,
Yeah.
not a like, oh, I'm super alone and tired. It's 2 a.m. and I've looked at 73 videos. And, it's like it, porn is exploring something because there's such a lack of truth.
Yeah.
There's such a need, but I have no idea how to live this in real life. And the
Mm.
internet is a fantasy, not real world. It's artificial intelligence that's making you emotionally, it's retarding your sexuality.
Mm.
So I think the places to start is, are you exploring sexuality in a strip club? Are you throwing at money? Are you throwing money at a female to get her attention?
Yeah.
So technically, you have to buy a female's attention.
Mm.
Are you exploring it in a synthetic way on the internet? Whatever the fuck you're doing, Tinder, whatever it is, and it's being honest about what are your intentions. Are you getting out of it what you think is the most fulfilling form of it? Just getting fucking honest.
Yeah.
And you and I are going to sit here and tell people what they should do, how they should express it, but it's always being honest about how you're expressing it, and more importantly, why are you expressing your sexuality that way?
Yeah. I think it's a beautiful way to put it, dude. And it makes me want to add to that too, that like regardless of what shame cycle you're stuck in, there's no one beyond being loved. You know what I mean? Because I've sat in groups with dudes that have said things that have just made me take a step back, like, whoa, like that was insane. I can't believe you
Yeah.
just said that. But it's important to realize that you are not beyond being loved, because the hard part of people stuck in the shame cycles that are going down dark, dark paths is they think they're beyond it. And to show that, no, you're not. And I think that's what you said. And to compound it with that is a great way to end it.
Yeah.
So, like we said before, this is a really big, huge topic. Like we can just go on and on and on about it. But hopefully, with what we said, you know, resonated with you. I know it resonated with me. I always appreciate what you have to say, dude.
Likewise.
So anything else you want to say before we wrap this sucker up?
Um, yeah. If you are gonna have sex, wrap that sucker up.
Oh, damn. Well, right on. All right. Well, that was an awesome way to end it. So, yeah, if as always, if you have questions, you have comments, anything, dude, we'd love to hear from people. Appreciate the people that are listening, and we'll be back with something else. Talk to you later.